So real quick, I don't know. I got this tested, so what I want to do is move HDMI off this guy into your computer. Is your HDMI on the left or the right? Gotcha.
Is it 1 o'clock in here?
It is, yes.
Are you coming?
Yes.
Good, I'm leaving.
Awesome. That door's locked.
Yeah.
Does it start at 1?
Yeah, it's supposed to start at 1.
Okay. Am I going? Is this show just for me?
Yeah, we'll put it on just for you. Because you're special.
Thank you.
This thing is twisty tight, pretty good.
He's not going towards the audience. That's what he told me.
Is he?
That's what he told me.
Streaming this.
Because I don't want to put it on me.
I have time to go to the ladies' room very quickly. Don't you?
Quickly?
I'll run. I'll walk fast. It's been a while since I've run.
Can we move this a little bit? There we go. Now we got a little more.
I'm a little bit confused on why this isn't taking it now. You try and unplug your HDMI and plug it back in real quick. Should. Why is it working from this Dell? Alright, there we go. 1 moment, please. Yeah, somewhere.
There we go.
There's your monitor.
What happened to the window I had open? There we go.
Awesome. Properties.
Yeah. Whoops. Wrong one.
Alright. Stream is live.
Okay.
Video.
We should be good to go then.
I was talking about the camera thing.
Still, I'm the only one.
I told you were special. We're doing it just for you.
Wow.
Well, that ain't gonna work.
Does it not look good on that wall?
I don't know. This is the way he had it set up, so I'm using it the way he had it set up. I'm assuming he knew what he was doing. Well, kind of.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're going to start installing these, are you?
Am I going to start installing them? No. But when I do talk to the customers that have had these installed, I'd like a little clue of what they were talking about and what they've been through.
You're not going to get that. I don't get it today.
You don't?
All I get is, it's not working. Okay, well, what's not working? What are we
Right.
talking about?
Exactly. So is this your landing page now?
This is the landing page for the installer. This is what it will look like when they first install it and it's up and running.
Your implementation uses this. The customer will never see this piece.
Not unless there's, well, okay, there again, it depends upon who's doing the training and who isn't.
Mhm.
I have been informed that sometimes they use this page for training, and that's not what it was designed for.
They used what for this one?
There are two different pages, and I don't know if I can, well, I can log in on the one. This is what the admin would look like. Okay, so there'd be alerts up in here, and there'd be tasks up in here if they were assigned. And they should be training the admins on this page. And then the staff looks totally different. I don't have a staff ID, or I'd show you. But basically the staff, all that they see is this, and the tasks.
The actual alarms and stuff that are going on.
Yeah. They can look at the residents, but they can't change them, and some other things.
So they're view only then?
Yeah, some of the things are view only, and some of the things are admins the same way. Some things are view only, some things aren't. But from what I understand, they are not training on that. They are training on this one. And they shouldn't be doing that.
Who told them that they should not be doing that?
It's in the manual that way. But we all know how people don't read manuals and or legalese.
This is true. We know that. Maybe this is what they're most comfortable with, is why they're doing
Yeah, the installers are most comfortable with this, and this is what they train on. Well, the installer can't do everything that the admin can do.
it. Really?
Yes, there was no need for them to do it.
Huh, okay.
Really?
Hi, Donnie. I showed up.
Really?
We do have people's training too, as well.
Yeah.
How can you tell who's on streaming now?
I can tell on my computer.
So there's people logged in?
Pat said he was coming, but I haven't seen him.
Let me go round up. Just everybody hold tight. We're going to go see who's coming to this training.
You coming to the training again?
No,
Didn't get enough the first day.
I had a real quick question. So on the phones, that second noise that it makes on a notification, that little doo-doo-doo-doo, is that just inherent to the smart e-call app?
No, that was something I put in because they said they weren't hearing the notifications.
Gotcha. Okay.
And then come to find out that's not what the entire problem was.
Right. They're just
So I left it in there.
Okay.
I will remove it at some point in time, but for right now it's just going to stay.
Okay, yeah, it's fine. I was just curious because, like, I looked at everywhere that the notification should be happening, so why is it still making that second noise? I thought it was, like, set differently in some place. Okay.
I may remove it when I make it so that they can't make it silent.
Gotcha. All right. Thanks. I'm just curious about that.
So back to my question, and I asked a lot of questions because I don't know, so I will ask.
No, you're
lots
fine.
of questions.
Keep asking all the questions you want.
So why would the implementation installer not have access
They do.
to the admin?
They
rights?
do.
They do. Okay, I thought you just said
Okay, when they first install this, they're going to get just the installer. But you can install anybody you want. The installer can.
So
You can add people in here. You can add an admin in here. You can add a staff person. You can't add an installer because that's special.
correct. That comes from us.
Yeah,
right?
that comes from us.
Okay. So, but what you had said earlier was that
They are training everybody on this page. They do not see this page. There's no point in giving an admin or a staff member access to this page. This is the soft point page where the POIs are set up. There's no point in giving them access to this page. That's the soft points that were saved. Or they got a lot in there. So there's a lot of things on this page that they don't have access to
they
as an
being-
admin or staff
they,
member.
They being the community.
Yes.
They don't have access.
Yes.
Okay.
Only the installer has access to this.
Okay.
This is why they should not be training
So
on this page.
so what I'm hearing is the installer has superpowers, and they can
Yeah.
get to anything, everything, superhero, right? Then you have-
Except for one or two things in the admin screen. There was no point in giving them access to it.
Okay. Because
They didn't need it.
do they
If-
have to train on it? Do
They,
need it to
but they
train
should
on
be
it?
training using the
Johnny
admin
wants
screen,
the
not
camera
this one.
pointed down
Okay.
towards the presenter.
I need the screen up like this. I don't know how you're going to do it. And I may be moving that screen. And we go to different screens. So what I'm saying is they should be using the admin screen. They should set up an admin screen for them and a staff screen and train them that way, not on this page.
So they need two, is what I'm hearing. They need an administrative one for their training purposes. They need the installation to get
To
it up
install
and
it.
running. And then once they're done, then train everybody on the admin.
Yeah, and from what I'm understanding, they will come back to the soft points and redo those every once in a while when they add when things fail and they add new transmitters and that kind of stuff.
During
So-
the installation, just
Well-
the installer or the,
The installer will.
Okay.
There's, like I said, there was no point in giving admin rights to any of this.
so when you're doing, I know this presentation hasn't started, I'm just
That's
questioning.
all right. Ask what
So
you
does it have, is it a role permission settings that you're using, or is it just strictly a site and login?
No,
settings?
it's the role permissions. Like I said, if you go into user settings and you do add, when you're adding a person here, you set their permissions in here.
Okay. And then you've already set the permissions of what they see.
Exactly. So for instance, in the user settings, the admin would have access to this screen to add more users. That's why we don't allow them to add an installer from here. It ain't gonna happen.
Right.
Okay, but they can add staff members, they can add more admins, they can do whatever they want in here. They could potentially remove the installer, but you don't really remove anybody from the system. It just marks them as inactive. But for today, we won't get into all of that. We're going to get into how to set it up. Pretty much. The rest of it's all in the manual, or we will have another training session if there's more questions.
How big is the manual? Did you write the manual?
Larry and I wrote it. It's one of those living documents, or as we add more and more to it.
Right. Is it pretty big?
I don't know, about 40-some pages. It's not that big. For instance, we're adding dome lights.
Mm-hmm.
We're adding voice alerts, so they go out over radio or phone. We're adding wander management. We're adding those kind of things. So it's going to be a living document.
So as you update this, does that change nurse call solutions that have already been installed? You push updates to them, correct?
As of now, no. We're only pushing updates currently right now to those places that are having issues.
Okay.
Kalamazoo was having issues with their smartphones. They kept claiming that they were dropping and they weren't signaling them when they got alerts.
Mm-hmm.
One of their issues is that they have a poor Wi-Fi system out there. So
That we don't manage.
that we don't manage it. Exactly. So what we did was in the software, we helped get around that a little. I mean, it's not perfect, but those updates go out. Canterbury was one of our very first installs. It's got a very old version out there. It's using some different hardware. I haven't updated that yet. That's going to be a big task to do. Okay, so in the long run, yeah, I want to get with Donnie and we're going to set up an FTP site where they can automatically update themselves when they need to.
Awesome. Okay.
But for right now, no, we're manually pushing all that stuff out.
So we have 9 people in attendance online. So what I need you to do is I need you to open up your YouTube chat, and go ahead and announce who's in here, just so we know. I'll be bringing my laptop in here. If you have any questions, just feel free to post it in the chat window, and we'll ask it. Mark, it's all yours, muchacho.
Okay, if we're ready to begin, isn't Pat coming? I guess not. Anyway, when the system is first loaded, it gets loaded to this directory on the C drive, which is the temp directory. Everything gets loaded in here, and to install the application, it's essentially just running this batch file. Once the batch file is ran, it installs the SQL Server, which is we're using MySQL, and an MQ, which is basically a messaging queue. What happens is it creates another directory called SmartEcall, and this is where everybody's going to be looking for anything. In here is some of the WAV files that we're using. It'll host the, like I was saying, it'll host the voice messaging when we get to that. We don't have it quite yet. It'll be there. Here's where the config is stored. Inside the config, if you look at app windows, because it's running on a Windows box, in here is most of where the config is stored, at least the initial config. These have to remain the same, at least for now. I would prefer that you didn't change this, but you can if you want. The SMTP host is the same for everybody. Here is the from address that would appear in the normal email alerts. Here is the from address for the scheduled reports. Inside the application, it will add the computer name here. That way we can tell them apart from different communities when they send emails to, us. Okay? The rest of it you probably don't need to worry about. Those are more specific settings for specific things. There is all the apps are stored, or all the services are stored in here. There's the alert escalator that alerts it, that sends the alert from the base alert up to escalation 1 through 5 and above. We'll get into escalations in a minute. There's a backup folder in here for backing up the database. And the OPT directory, I know it doesn't make sense, but the OPT directory is the one where the UI, that is this interface, is stored. And the base application, or the core application if you will, is in here. And the reason I bring up all of these folders is because if you go into the folder, there's generally a file in here that says that it's a log file. And if we look out at one of the systems that's actually live that's on my machine, you'll see that it says wow, that font's a little small. You'll see that it says .out. If it has a number in front of the .out, that is an archive. It archives them up to 20. After 20, it just starts over again with 0 and goes through 20 again. But anyway, inside these files is information about what it's doing, about any errors it gets. Not all errors are reported in here. There's a .err file where there are errors reported. This one didn't actually happen to have any, which is good. So you're going to be most concerned about those. What you end up with then when you log in as the installer, let's log out.
Can I stop you there and ask one question?
Sure.
When you said this is what you would be most concerned about, what, looking for an alert?
If there's an issue with the system, you'll be looking at those log files.
Okay.
Now, there are some errors that do get put into the table, but you have to have rights to the SQL editor to actually get into them, and I'm not giving anybody rights to that yet. So, because there have been a lot of issues. We're going first in. Okay, so you'll when you first run it, a lot of things are not going to be ran. For instance, the network coordinator that gathers all the information from the transmitters and stuff will not be running because it's not set up yet. So one of the things you're going to do is run this from localhost :8080 and then log in as installer. There's a password that everybody should know. That should not change. And you'll come to this screen, which is the installer's screen. And from here, you'll go in and set up users, extra users if you need them. There's navigation in the manual. If you take a look at the manual, it'll tell you how to navigate through here. The most things that you're going to be interested in is the system setup. Like I said, this is going to be a class more on setup. This IP address is the server IP address that it currently has, and it goes out and gets that every time this page comes up. This facility name should be changed to be more meaningful to whatever the facility is named. The business token, you can change it or not. It doesn't really matter. And then in here, if you're doing locationing, you'll have to set the pendant ID, basically the serial number in here. before you do any type of locationing. And that's pretty much it for the setup. These other things you can change. You can read more about those. The email host does need to be set up in here for reports. All current alerts, that is when an alarm goes off and it's supposed to be emailed, it will go to the config file first. If it finds the email address in there, the email host address, it will use that. And unless there is one in the database, that is it being in here, then it will use this address. The scheduled reports do, however, have to have this in there, otherwise the scheduled reports will not work.
Before you go out of that, you said look pendant.
There's a location.
Scoot over that.
There's a location the pendant that they use for locating the soft.
So you have to get each
virtual
pendant,
rooms or
you have
whatever.
to go in here and do this?
No, because they're only going to use one pendant for that locationing.
Okay.
Okay, it's a
It's
special
a
pendant.
special, okay.
Yeah.
You can't use
It's a superpower pendant.
it's a regular pendant, but you just designate it.
Yeah, we designate it here. It will not show up in the alerts.
Okay.
That's why it's designated here.
Okay.
Otherwise, it would show up in the alerts, and the nurses would go crazy. Where was I going with that? Anyway, to set up the escalations, you have to set up the groups first. In here, the users have to be set up. The users have to actually be set up first before you go to groups. Then groups allow you to add those users and or devices. This one doesn't happen to have pagers, but if it had pagers, you'd see that down here. So they all have to be set up first. You simply add them by clicking on them. That puts them in this box. To remove them, click on that box. Make sure you put a name in here, otherwise it won't let you save it. Make sure that it's clicked as active if it needs to be used. And going back to the dashboard, once a group is set up, you can go into escalations. And then in escalations, you can set the group. You can add the group to some escalation. And it will give you a level to first start alerting. So if I hit level 1, you will get an alert for all of these. You'll get an alert for every time it gets escalated until the device is reset. If I click on level 2, you will only start getting alerts after it reaches, well, when it reaches level 2 and after. The email is a special condition, if you will. If you click on level 1 and email, it will send an email at level 2 and every level after that. If you don't click it, it'll send it on the first one. Emails are never ever supposed to be used as a first alert to somebody, because the reason being is that it takes forever for some emails to get to somebody. Not only does it have to go through our SMTP server, it has to go through whatever server they've got their email address on. So it could take a long time. So it's never ever to be used as a first alert.
So if you have it checked there, I told you I'm gonna have lots of questions.
No, that's fine.
Okay, so if you go back and if you check email there
Yeah.
by itself, nothing on level 1, does that mean that's first alert?
That's the first alert, yes.
So-
And there are some places that want that. For instance, if there's an admin that all they're doing is just tracking alerts and they don't care when time that comes in, it could be hours before they get it, that's fine. As
Okay.
long as that's what they're using it for. If they're using it to help somebody, then you never ever want to click just emails. Now you can have multiple people in here because we don't have it set up, or multiple
Right.
groups.
Sure.
There would be another group here and you could set that group at level 1 and this group for email.
Is there anything, like if you hover over it right there, that would tell exactly what you said, this is only to be used?
No, but that's a good idea. That's a very good idea.
I will
And
have
I can add that.
Mic drop.
Anyway, make sure you got a name in here. Otherwise, it really screws things up if you try and save it. Come on. And that's it for pretty much the setup. I mean, there are other things in here. For instance, you can do testing of emails. This just tests the alert email. It doesn't test for scheduled reports. You can put in here whatever you want and it'll email it to that person just to make sure that the email server's working, just to make sure they're getting their email. I don't have the scheduled reports in there yet. And like I said, this is the installer screen. the admin and staff will never see these two. And here's this. Well, not
Actually,
there.
they have a different screen. for
Yeah, they
that.
got a different screen. Well, yeah, they'll never see them though. But that's true. They do have a different screen. This is the scheduled reports. We have some canned reports in here. Low battery alerts, alert by staff. You can tell it what time you want to gather that information from, the times that you want to gather it, and then the days you want to send it out. I guess this is the time it gets sent. Make sure you click active and make sure you click on who it goes to.
So basically like this, you can send this out to every shift.
Yeah,
When they
you
come
could.
on, they could all have a brand new,
Or
fresh email of what's going on.
or they could go back to this one. Not that one. This one. Go back to this one. The can reports are over here. So they can click on this and then change the date on this and do an update. And it will display in here if there was any data. We don't have any data up there. So that's a quick overview of how it gets installed. Questions, concerns, suggestions?
Slide comments or remarks.
Oh, you know I have those.
Anything online? Anybody got questions from online?
Frank McNulty says Happy Friday.
Yay!
I have no questions yet, but if I do get questions, with 13 people streaming it, I will let you know if we have any questions.
Cool. Well,
I'm not an installer, so I probably don't have the most questions out there.
What you showed me, the difference between the admin and the staff.
I showed it to her, but I don't have a staff member. Let me set up a staff member real quick.
So the admin, but I'd like to see.
Actually, I don't think there's an admin on here. Let's do both.
How easy is it to register pendants in here?
To register a pendant is real easy. If you want to see that, I can show you real quick. Go into devices. It's a transmitter. Go into here, and you set up the pendant in here. For instance, you would hit the plus to add. So then you would click down here, whichever pendant it is. There's multiple pendants. We have 3 different kinds of pendants. And then put its serial number in here. All the pendants send their serial number when they send an alert. So you put the serial number in there, and then you can add it to some resident because it is a pendant. Pendants are tied to residents. Pull cords and plungers are tied to rooms. So if I put a plunger or a pull cord in here, you'll see this change to room. And you can put whatever room in there, and then within that room you can tell it what location. So like bath 1, bath 2, whatever.
So on the drop down that you had to choose the type, or does that say transmitter? When you're actually either a staff member or admin, I'm assuming would add it.
Admin will have this, yes.
Do they have that full list of them that they have to choose from, or is it
These-
only
these are-
what's been installed?
These are the
there?
only ones that we support.
Okay, I understand. that.
Every device sends a unique pattern out, so we need to know what that device is and where it came from. For instance, on here, there's a Crest plunger and a Crest pull cord. They send a different pattern, if you will, to our network controller. So we need to know that this is coming from a Crest. Otherwise, we could confuse it and say that it's coming from a pendant and not really know.
I'm just asking if I was an admin or a nurse, if they chose the wrong one, what's
Well,
gonna happen?
They're going to have to know. That's why the installers generally install it.
But adding it later is why I was asking.
Yeah, they'll have to ask and
You see
find
what I'm
out.
getting at, Larry? Is, I've had knock people, I've had customer service, I've had accounting people that are in that, they get in that struggle with that. So I was just curious if it's specifically, this is all that's ever been installed, so you only have these to choose from. But it looks like there's a whole laundry list there they can choose from.
Yeah, and we
Yeah,
keep
no,
adding them
yeah.
all the time. We keep adding them all the time. So, that's,
I didn't bring you lunch though. Sorry.
you can bring lunch for everybody? Why not?
I didn't bring it for her.
Oh, okay. The thing about setting up the devices is, Tanya pointed out yesterday, you're best to set up your escalation groups first because you set them in here as you're setting up the device. So you're better off setting up your escalation groups first. Otherwise, you'd have to go back in here and add it to the escalation group. Because if you don't, it does not alarm. On the admin page, you would see, let me set up an admin real quick. You would see where it said unassigned devices. This does not have to be a real email address. It can be anything, as long as it's in an email format. Now if I log back out and log back in, now the first time through it's going to tell you that you need to change your password, as we're all used to doing that. And this is the admin screen. So in here you would see unassigned missing devices, if it's not assigned to a group or anybody. And then in here would be the active alerts and the tasks. And then the staff that's available, as you can see, we're the only ones online. So the mobile phones get added in here as well once they're set up. Now setting up a mobile phone is completely different. You pretty much have to know how to set up an Android.
Are these the plums you're talking about?
What's that?
The plums?
Yeah.
Any mobile phones.
Any of them actually. But you can see the admin in here's can go in and add residents if they want.
I did have one online comment. Lindsay Harrison requested that Pat move away from the camera. Her eyes hurt.
Where is the camera?
On his computer.
It's on there. Right on mine.
And that's streaming live.
To the plate. I don't think that's gonna be surprised.
So when I said plum, you said any. So any cell phone, any mobile device?
Not a,
Our application runs on.
Okay. I just want clarification because I said plum.
it will run, but it may look really weird depending upon the device size.
Just asking.
It will run on any version greater than 6 Marshmallow, I think, whatever it is. It was targeted for Marshmallow and up.
Okay.
It's like,
What's that?
it's an Android garbage.
You still have that hot pink I found?
I do.
I haven't done it either.
All right.
Nope.
Actually, I have a flip phone that would work better for him. I'm waiting for
I will
Conway.
opt out. I will opt out.
That was changed.
I know.
And that's what the staff looks like. Active alerts, tasks that were assigned, and then a daily log of what's happening that day.
What example would you say that I would see as a daily log?
Some alert was cleared, some task was completed that day. Everything beyond that won't show up.
Any chances our voice connected this, like a 911 call, would that show up on here or not?
We're getting there.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Go ahead.
We're getting there.
If they, we have some properties that aren't banned, and when they push the pendant, it actually calls 911. It's just a call, it'll show up as an alert briefly, and then it'll clear because no one's watching the system.
You didn't tell me how to click. But that's okay, it's already programmed in there.
I just wondered if this was through the Meta was sending you anything for that.
Anyway, that's pretty much it for setting it all up. Not a whole lot to it. Like I said, the staff can go in, they can look at residents, they can't add or edit. Same way with the tasks they can edit. If there was one in here and they clicked on it, they could say that it was completed. Devices are the same way, they can only look at. And the reports, I think, are the same way. No, they can actually run a report.
So Darren, can you see anything as like on the dashboard that you would expect or would want to see if you log in the morning that happened overnight or things during the day? Or is that, does he have it covered?
Yeah, I mean, usually it's just like the alerts. Yeah, that's the main thing that they look at. Do you have, well, I guess, how about missed tasks? You know, you got no task available.
Nah, there's no such thing as a missed task because none of them are really given completion dates.
Okay.
I mean, we can put that in at some point in time, but for now.
Well, sometimes some of the tasks, because I worked at Atria, some of the tasks were, you know, medication reminders at, you know, 8 a.m., 12 p.m. and such. If they have to check that off, so they don't check it off as a
Sure.
becomes a missed task.
Yeah, it'll just show up as not being completed.
Right. Okay.
They can once they check it off, then it shows that it's completed.
So if it's there, that means that they haven't checked it off.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Same thing as in those tasks. Okay.
Anything else?
Let me see what your residence list looks like.
Residents? Well, they don't have. They only got but one in here.
How often does this back up?
It gets backed up on a regular schedule every day, isn't it?
Every day, the database is dumped to a file, stored locally, and then it is also stored in our Amazon S3 container for each site. Now, as far as a bare bones recovery, nada. Only because we can flash a system and drop the database in there and ship it out. Our next training session will probably be syslogging and backups, maybe. I don't know. Depends on how the wind blows. May come up with another interesting topic to do.
Okay, well that's all I had to show.
Does anybody else have any other questions, especially live stream, other than Lindsay saying for Pat to move?
On the drop-down menu for devices, is there a way to only set up those devices that are currently at that community versus having a list of 20 devices and they only
That's possible through the database. Yes, there are devices that are in the database that are not being displayed now, but yes, we
Okay.
can do that.
that would be good for the communities, I think. If they only have, if you have different types of devices, then that's only 5 you see, so you don't pick something that's not there.
Yep. We're assuming that whoever installs it though is smart enough to know what devices they are.
But you have such changeover, they're turnover, so
I
that's
know.
gonna change. So
I know.
the next,
I know.
year down the road, they're chugging along and
Year.
LED like leaves, and then the next one.
3 weeks. So we do have another talking point, future training sessions. What does everybody want to hear? I'm going to send an email out to everyone, but I've gotten boo back on what other training sessions people would like for us to perform. As most of you know, that we are required to perform 2 of these a month. So I need topics. I need ideas because I just can't pull them out of my butt. And so
That work for
fail over FortiGate. FortiGate's on our list of stuff to do. And the only reason we do 2 different days is because the knock is in 2 different shifts. So I'd like to get away from doing that, but that's probably never going to happen. So
I think it's a great idea to do 2 different days in streaming.
I don't,
Why?
because
And your trainer will get really good.
or what?
Your trainer will get
Ah,
very good.
This is
I
only
ain't the
session
trainer.
he's
This is the
doing.
last one I'm doing.
This is the second one, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
this is the last one too.
Oh, you'll have more.
No, no.
Yeah, we have to. The only reason he did this one is because we've had some smart e-call stuff going out, and I didn't feel like doing the training this time. So
Oh,
that's why Mark is doing the training, because I saw it pop up on my calendar. I'm like, ooh, I can ask Mark to do it this week. So
I don't think you know everything that was going on anyway, do you?
on the smart
The
e-call
smart
stuff,
call, yeah. Everything we've changed.
I think I was about 90%.
Yeah.
I'll give it some thought and shoot you over some ideas for training.
I think as time allows us, I mean, we have a new managed IT platform that's getting ready to start. That's going to eat up some of the training. That is going to be identifying a lot of that stuff. Just supporting the systems that we are going to be supporting is going to be probably 2 or 3 sessions full of, because we're no longer just going to be managing circuits and VDSL modems, CMTSs. We're going to start looking at servers, workstation printers,
Mhm.
anything that sits on the network we're going to be supporting. So that will include training existing staff and adding more staff, but I mean, I want everybody on the same page and have an understanding of it too. So
So when you're asking for training ideas, are you asking specifically to train the knock guys? Are you talking about
It is-
implementation?
it started off as knock and implementation. But I see a need to, as we are doing these sessions, to include everyone. Because you have client services who are not only having a relationship with the customer, but they are also quoting new opportunities. They're identifying new opportunities. You have salespeople who are talking about our product and they may or may not understand how it works or anything like that. So the more everybody in our company is educated on how our product works and how to maybe possibly troubleshoot it, or if they hear something that sticks with them, like Loness is on here now. If she kind of understands how the escalation groups work, and if she talks to somebody and they're talking about the pain point of their nurse call, be like, oh, our escalation groups work like this. We can do it like this. That not only makes them look, smarter for the customer, but yet it makes it easier for them to identify those opportunities and where to stick her foot in and say, oh, we can do that, rather than just saying that, oh, we have a nurse call. It's great. They can actually speak to an extent. And as our trainings go on, IPT, okay, for instance, we go with FortiGates. We don't use ad trains anymore because ad trains are garbage. So we use FortiGates. We use it for a reason. So as they go through the training, Vanessa may have an opportunity to sell an IPTV refresh and explain this is why we use this. This is why we want you to do it, because this equipment it outperforms the equipment that's there. And gives us an opportunity to improve things. So it started out as not an implementation, but why not include everybody? If they can make it, they can make it. If they can't, they can't. But the more you know, the better you are off. So
This is PSA for the day.
is that the shooting?
Yep,
The
it
shooting
is.
star.
It is.
The more you know. So we'll probably 2 weeks we'll have another session, and I don't know what it's gonna be yet, but we'll figure it out. Well, thank you everyone. Let's stop that stream. We now have a dedicated stream laptop as well. So